Hi everyone, Natu here again, back with another video. And in this video, I'm going to explain the pros and cons versus setting up a real estate fund and setting up a real estate investment trust. So I'm going to focus on a lot in the sales perspective, because many people, they focus on actually setting up the deal and then raising the capital, and they wonder which one is it best to raise capital for based on their situation. It obviously depends on many factors, but I'm going to really emphasize the ability to close in the sales perspective in people who sell to investors. So if somebody I guess some of the pros and cons of setting up a real estate fund versus setting up a real estate investment trust. The thing is that from an investor sales perspective, the real estate investment trust already has quote unquote brand recognition. People know what a real estate investment trust is, but if you say you're setting up, if you're raising capital for a fund and you explain the fund is more, so because funds are more flexible and they're more broad and they're more vague, so you can put anything inside of a fund. You can structure a fund however you want. You can, like a real estate fund, or it's just a fund. Like you can acquire assets and then, you could do an LPGP setup. You can do any type of setup, and the setups, people aren't expecting rental income, and people don't have to get rental income. It's not something that has the quote unquote brand of, there's more work to be done in the investor education part of it. So you have to do more investor education. Whereas if you're setting up a real estate investment trust, people think, oh, it's a real estate investment trust. It's probably something that is going to go public one day and I'm going to get rental income on day one from my investments into the real estate investment trust. And you already know all the tax benefits. The tax benefits are all listed. The expectations are all set for the tax benefits and everything. Whereas if you're talking about a real estate fund, people may be concerned and may think, okay, is this a real estate development? Like, is this some land ground up development thing where somebody's going to raise capital to acquire land that doesn't have any permits or licensing, so it's not proven to actually be something to generate revenue, and there are a lot of risks associated with the product? Or is it something where somebody's raising capital to buy rental properties that are already generating revenue? What type of investment is it? And a lot of that education has to be done up front when you're just doing a real estate fund or a fund in general. Whereas if you're doing a real estate investment trust, as you're not doing the ground up developments or whatever, people are expecting to invest into something that is probably public or probably going to be public and is generating rental income on day one. So that's number one. Number two is, from a setup point of view, there are far fewer burdens, and you have far more control if you're setting up a real estate fund. Because a real estate fund, there's so many different ways to set it up, and when people hear real estate fund, people just think of the only thing that the real estate fund has over the REITs is that people think of the typical LPGP agreements. So a limited partner and a general partner, and then you have the management fees and you have the performance fees, and people think of a simple, setup. But because the real estate fund would require more nuance, it requires more. There's a bit more explaining beyond that. Whereas if you're setting up a REIT, people are expecting to put money into something where they're getting, they're buying units into the real estate investment trust corporation, and they get their income from those units that they purchase. So, and these units may be something that would potentially trade public, because there are a lot of publicly traded REITs that quote unquote the average person can get access to. So the point I'm making is that from a setup point of view, the setup of the real estate fund is much easier as a generality than the real estate investment trust. And there's also, especially in the States, a big expectation of you having to get 100 shareholders at some point. So you have to get 100 shareholders, 100 different investors into your deal. And there are different rules and regulations in addition to what people are expecting for it to be something where it's a real estate investment trust. And so that's the other piece, is that there are more rules and regulations in addition to securities law that you have to follow, and there are a lot of tax implications as well. So if you can deal with those burdens, then real estate investment trust is for you. And if you potentially want to go public and you want to leverage the brand of the real estate investment trust, but if you're somebody who just wants to set something up quick, then a real estate investment fund, or just a real estate fund, is much more simple. And I guess the third difference is, from a sales perspective, I guess the benefits of using a real estate fund, I guess the benefit of using a real estate fund over the real estate investment trust is if you want to have flexibility into the types of deals you want to originate, and you want to make the rules yourself. So from a sales perspective, it really depends. But if you're working with people that have the strategy to invest into something that is like a development deal or is a certain type of assets, then the development deal people would probably be drawn into the real estate fund. And the more rules that you create as a generality, the more the investor will have to succumb to those rules. There's a bigger sales process, and succumb to those rules, there's a bigger sales process. And you may need to find smaller check investors if you're selling people on something that they have to be educated about. But if there's not as much upfront education required and the investor already knows what they're getting into, then it could be easier to sell larger check investors without as much of a sales process. So with this has just been a quick video talking about the differences and the pros and cons versus real estate investment trust and real estate investment fund or real estate fund. And from here, if you like this video, if it makes some sense, hit that like button and click subscribe if this is on YouTube. But more importantly, what do we do? And what are you looking for? I mean, if you're looking to potentially set up one of these entities and you don't know how to, and you actually want to raise the capital for you to be actually able to execute on it, just head to raises.com and we'll show you more. And so with this, we'll see you in the next one.